Hi, I'm Victor Vogel. I have a podcast, Renaissance Leadership Odyssey. Now, why do I do that podcast? I do podcasts, and I chose that medium because it's a way to reach people on video, a large amount of people on video, at least so people can see you. They have some sense of your nonverbal connections, and they can get the full scope of what I call communication, because I am a communication consultant and I am a leadership consultant. And I've been doing this for over 4.5 decades. And I find it interesting that we have moved from wanting to understand and know to wanting to have our minds tickled. And by that I mean, I don't do Facebook, I don't do TikTok, I don't do Instagram, at least when I say I don't do them. I don't put my product out there as a source very often, and I'm frankly just beginning to not do it at all from now on. And the reason is all of those other platforms, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Edit, all of them don't have a strong video presence, or they, in terms of the information shared, or they have a truncated system, 240 characters for X, or I think it's interesting, people say X and then they follow with, it used to be Twitter. It's like X has never made the transition yet, no matter how much Elon Musk tries to push it that way. The others also truncate a certain amount of space to comment. It's mostly asynchronous, which means it's later, so you post a comment, somebody might see it. I mean, I've gotten responses back to comments I've made that, 2 weeks later after I made them, I had to go back and find out what I made, even what the topic was they were talking about. That's the dilemma social media has. What happens here on YouTube is, with YouTube, you're not restricted. Most of my podcasts I do because I'm trying to create a digital footpath that talks about the kinds of things that you need to know about and master as a leader to be effective in the future, to be a good leader over the next decade or two, because it's going to be more challenging than ever before. And so when I do a program, I'm talking about a subject, excuse me, when I'm talking about a subject, I want to go in depth in that subject to the point where at least the key areas are covered, and it might generate some comments. Now, the dilemma with that approach is that people don't want that today. We've trained people that if you can't grab their attention in the first 15 seconds, it must not be worth listening to. If the person is not camera experienced, if they're not a good on-camera kind of person, they may be a solid expert, they're just not a great on-camera person. If you don't capture that attention on TikTok or whatever it is, they're scrolling so fast they go right by you. So they'll miss all the expertise that you could get out of listening to this person. And maybe when you get in there, it's not what you want to hear, but maybe it is what you need to hear. But if it's not what you want to hear and you're not drawn to it immediately, you just discard it. You don't take the time to listen to it, think about it, see what pieces work for you, and then discard the rest. But to do that, you have to normally listen to the whole thing. So my podcasts are anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Maybe some will go over 2 hours if there were people asking questions. But they're not designed to get 10,000 likes or even to get 1,000 likes, which would allow me to monetize on YouTube. But to be honest with you, I don't want to monetize on YouTube. I don't know what I would do with 1,000 people who I don't know and can't touch and can't talk to and can't get a sense of an ongoing dialogue that allows me to help them and provide the breadth of 45 years and 8 years of college and graduate and postgraduate work, and all the research I've done and all of the literature and all of the information I've collected from experts like me over the years, 40 years, that's packed in. I can't get that to you in my 1.5 or 2 hour podcast. I can help you understand, but over the course of time, I can cover specific segments that I know you should be familiar with that are extremely important to you understanding about leadership. And that will be a digital history. You can go back and look at them anytime you want, as long as YouTube's on the air. When it goes away, I guess it all goes away. I don't know. I can't even imagine what the future would be without them. So, and most people have a hard time doing that too. But I will tell you this. I can't. It does no good for me to post something that I think. I mean, I can't write enough about what I'm thinking is important about what I'm saying in a post on LinkedIn, for example. And then people aren't going to read all of it anyway because they're trained to skim. So they don't go into depth. They don't think about what I'm writing. And I understand that. And that's where they're being trained today. What I refuse to do is co-opt it. I refuse to behave that way because that is not the most effective way you're going to learn. So if I write something, I get 1,000 impressions, but I only get 5 likes. What's that say? Does that say I'm a horrible person? I don't know what I'm talking about. After 45 years of developing hundreds of leaders who have gone on to be leaders in corporations, if I base my self-worth and success on somebody only putting 5 likes on some sort of post I wrote on LinkedIn, I would just give up. You know, life wouldn't be worth living. Now, I don't want 1,000 likes. In fact, I don't even want you, if you read something I do on any social media, I appreciate a comment, a thoughtful comment, one that's edifying, one that even if you disagree, with me, I would rather you line out your argument in the disagreement, because out of all of the years I've been doing this, every time I meet with another professional and sometimes another person, they may write something that I disagree with but strikes me, and then I say, wow, that does make sense. Maybe I've been seeing this wrong for 40 years. And I change my mind and I go down that path. One person can do that for me. It doesn't take 10. I certainly am not going to go into analytics and see if I have 10,000 likes on any post. You know, which post did the most. Here's the mistake we're making. Leadership today is perceived, the vast majority of companies, only 30% of the employees are excited about leadership, feel like they're valued, feel like what they've said they're listened to, and they feel like they have an opportunity to grow and they are needed. 30%. That means 70% on an average don't for most companies. Now, there are some best practices companies that have that actually reversed. And they have the secret that connects the top of the organization where they're going to those people who do the work and the leaders in between that. They know how to use those leaders effectively and make that connection and keep that engagement. But even they struggle down the road because it can overwhelm them if they don't understand, if they try to use the current leadership paradigm where we're using leaders to divide work and to make it go more efficiently, make it go faster, make it go better, as opposed to building the community of the organization that can encourage and allow all of that efficiency and effectiveness to happen. And so one thing we missed, and that is that middle leadership group is like the nervous system to you. You know, it signals everything to everybody. And if something is bad, wrong with your nervous system somewhere, you don't function properly. Then how do you correct it? So it takes time to research that. It takes time to learn about it. It takes time to develop it. You have to maintenance and develop your body to keep yourself alive and healthy. I know that at 77. There's things I can't do. I have to restrict myself from what I did before. That allows me to stay alive a little longer. So that's the way it is in organizations. You have to maintenance it. You have to understand. You have to change it. We haven't changed much of what we've done for over 40 years when it comes to leadership development. We're still teaching the same stuff. We're still looking at the organization the same way. We're still looking at leadership the same way. That's what that Renaissance Leadership Odyssey is about. It's about a paradigm shift. It's indicating or proposing to you that you need to stop, take a breath, and rethink how you look as an organization and how your leadership is and who they are and what they really should be about. That's different from what we're doing now. But that's not why I'm here. Why I'm here is I'm here telling you why I was on YouTube, because you can't get that kind of information. You can't get that kind of in-depth involvement and excitement with people without spending time. Without spending time with people together. Experts and people who aren't experts but have new and creative and innovative ideas, because you've created an environment where you're going to take time to meet with people. We are humans. We have this desire to connect. And if you can't connect, if you don't know how to do that, that's the sociology of, I have 3 pillars associated with that paradigm change. One is psychology, one is sociology, and the other is interpersonal communication. These are non-negotiable areas that you must master as a leader to cope with the decades coming up. You got to know yourself first. We have spent no time in leadership development. I've been in it a whole lot of years. I've watched a whole lot of things. We're just now getting to the point where we're beginning to recognize we have to take time. That's what all of this latest mindfulness and all these things, but even that, we're trying to monetize it. We're not trying to do it in a sterile environment where it works and you can take the time to make it work right for you, like inside the organization, instead of outsourcing it to everybody else. Hire the people. Make it work for you inside. One, it's going to be less expensive. 2, it's going to be more focused and customized to you. When you take something like these training programs that are out there today that people are marketing externally to corporations, then what happens is you go out there and you go online, you take all these courses, and research is showing that less than 30% of the people take anything back into the organization and make it work. It's been a problem ever since I've been doing this, transferring knowledge into the business. Now, I worked through it because I didn't create the training program. I created training programs, but those are the same programs I trained. I brought in, I did them in-house inside the company, and I was able to go back out and visit on an ongoing basis over 10 years in a company, whether I was consulting or whether I was working in that company. I could go out and talk to people about what they learned in that 1-week leadership course. Renaissance Leadership Odyssey is not a program you take online and then you try to go out and do it yourself. It's designed for corporations or small businesses to grasp a hold of the idea, bring it in-house, put it together, and make it work on an ongoing basis for years. It's not something you're going to get. The interpersonal communication course that I just designed, and I'm probably going to start in July, that's offered inside of this course. Now, I am going to offer that course also on the outside, but I don't expect it to do much. I don't expect many people to sign up, to be honest with you. Because most people think they already know how to communicate, but they haven't been trained to. They have no idea when I say the meaning of the message is in the mind of the receiver. When I quote that to people most of the time, people say to me, they look at me weird, and I said, think about what I just said. Take a moment and digest it, and then ask me questions about it. The meaning of the message is in the mind of the receiver. So what does that say about you, the person who is trying to say something to somebody and get them to do what you ask them to do or hear them? There's so much involved in that process that people have no idea or don't think about because they've never been trained what's going on in a communication process. They've been trained in English, they've been trained in language, they've been trained in sentence structure, they've been trained how to write. They have not been trained how to communicate. Everything they've learned, they've normally learned from influencers around them who have also not been trained for the most part in communication. Now, some people, they get that somehow, some way. They get more enhancement for it. It's interesting. I worked for a TV station for a while when I was going through college, and they had people come in and train people how to interface and connect, the nonverbal cues and everything to connect online, to make the audience on the other side of the camera sort of stand up and pay attention to this person. And those who got that well were pretty much had a higher rating than those who didn't. But they didn't know it when they stepped, they were people with college degrees in marketing, etc. They never had a communication training course. They didn't have anybody spend a couple of hours talking about one topic like active listening is a big topic today. Guess what? If you're a really good communicator, active listening is not that critical in your life. If you do it right the first time. Why is active listening so important? You got to listen to what people are saying. Well, yeah, you can listen, but active listening is it's an intense listening. If you're intensely listening to everything everybody says to you, you're going to get burned out real quick. So those are the things I'm talking about. You don't get a chance to discuss this online over a period of time. And if you didn't listen to this video, or if you listen to this video, you realize other people who didn't listen to this video are missing some important parts about why interpersonal communication is important, but so is knowing who you are, how you think, how your background affects you, how your values and principles are impacting how you communicate, which is the interpersonal communication side. Knowing yourself is the psychological side, but the sociological side is what are the things that you have to do to connect. What are the things that connect who you are to the other person, and then the methodology you use to do that. That's where we have fallen down. That's why people can't link to their leadership. That's why leadership role has to be bigger than just task-driven leadership. And these are the things that are in this Renaissance Leadership Odyssey program. There are things that are critical. The podcasts I'm doing are things that are critical to grasping and understanding, and the podcast is designed to get you into it in a thoughtful process way so that you will then be excited about going out and discovering more on your own. Because there's a lot more than what I tell people in those podcasts about each one of those subjects. And there are a lot of other people like me out there that have great ideas about them that are different than mine. The one thing I learned early on as a professional, as a leader, and as a consultant wasn't to be an expert. It was to use every expert idea when it was appropriate, at the right time, at the right place. It was one of the reasons I'm 15 hours away from a doctorate program. I had a thesis that was pretty much approved and gone through. That wasn't going to be hard to defend. But they had this demand. And the demand was, it's a traditional demand for doctoral thesis or doctoral graduations, defenses. You have to pick a topic area and you have to defend that topic area against all other odds. The reality for me, having been a consultant for over 20 years, is that's not how I was most effective in the business world. I was most effective at accepting these different ideas that were put out there and then identifying how they fit within an organization to help get whatever the problem was that needed to be solved. And that's what I kept telling them. You don't need to be an expert at everything. There are enough people out there providing enough expert knowledge. It's the knowledge that makes the difference. But sometimes it's the combined knowledge, the collaborative combined knowledge of several areas together that make an organization that clicks with what the organization needs to change their behavior and make them go forward. But you have to be in there. That's why I'm struggling real hard. I want to get the exposure of the communication out there also, because that's kind of a separate piece from the Renaissance Leadership Odyssey program. But it's an integral part. I designed it to be inside with those other three areas. Those other two areas, positive intelligence, is what I use and guide people to for psychology. It is a separate program run by Shirjad Sumin, and it has a 6 or 7 week program attached to it, and then you go on, and there's some additional things that you can buy extra, and yeah, I think it's $1,000 on the average for a person to go in there and learn that. You put that into an organization. You can, of course, downscale the cost of it, but it's pretty costly, expensive process for a company to put in, but it's not that expensive for a small business to use if you take it in its entity. The other side, sociology, I recommend Daniel Goleman's, and specifically because he was the driver, the person to push us through. A lot of people have a lot of good ideas, etc., but Daniel was the person who for years, he just thought about this. Yeah, he's since designed a program that you can learn it, and he's certifying people. He's now monetized it too, which is a problem I have. But I'm not talking about just taking those programs and letting them go away after you take the program. Just, let them fall by the wayside. You now have the knowledge. I'm talking about you taking that program, putting it into your organization, and permeating and inoculating the organization with these 3 programs about leaders and understanding programs not about what Shirzad Samim says. It's about you knowing yourself. It's not about what Daniel Goleman says about you, your emotional intelligence, and your understanding of your own, and your visualizing understanding the other. It's how you impact and change your behavior in reacting to other people. That's the end result picture of this. That has to happen with experience inside an organization where you actually do it. And then the same is true about interpersonal communication. How to create a message, how to send a message, how verbal, nonverbal impact it, how the person receives the message, what's involved with that, how feedback works, how that whole process works, how you then use that day in and day out to cope with things like change and conflict and emotional distress, psychological health, motivation, innovation, just all kinds of things like that that are important for employees to help support the organization's goals. But then, in addition to that, the importance of creating the whole concept around this, where you're not just executing these 3 separate concepts. And in fact, I tell you, it's kind of like the trilogy. It's almost unexplainable, but it's a good way to think about it. They're inextricably intertwined to a point where they are all one, but they can't be separated. They all are so closely tied together, so closely reinforce each other, that when you have them together, they become an all-powerful force for leadership. To not just, well, let me put it this way, to first create the organization that's healthy, that allows you to go out and achieve all those tasks and those things you want to do, and to sustain that health and sustain that strength so that you optimize all the learning that goes on from those experiences, and it continues to help you inside grow your organization and not turn those people over to somebody else for them to go put that to work for somebody else. That's your goal. It should be. That doesn't happen with a 15-second TikTok. It doesn't happen with a reply on LinkedIn or a comment. It happens when you listen to something long enough, understand it, and feel compelled to go farther into it. Go into those things that makes a leader a great leader. If you are a person who wants to be a leader. And that's the one thing over 4 decades we have failed to do. That I am telling people, when you change your paradigm, this is what you need to stick in there. First, you need to structure your whole leadership development and your whole leadership selection process to encompass this concept of the leader understanding who they are and what they are about and why they think the way they do and why they feel like leadership is something they want to do, because it is far beyond simply delivering sales in a marketing department. Because when you sit at the table with other leaders to divide your budget, that's when your conflict starts, when you have that kind of paradigm. versus a collegial paradigm, where you might be saying, hey, you know, I see the need is greater over here in this operations arm. Why don't we take some of my budget and put over there? Because the whole organization will benefit. And guess what? Maybe we won't have that layoff, or maybe we won't have that divestiture that costs lives to be disrupted. These are the things you need to be thinking about. So this is a very long video saying basically why I think you ought to back up. Now, I don't care if I can't speak to anybody else besides leaders and leadership, because I know about those people. I know about where they come from and what should be going on with them. So the rest of the world, you know, if you're an SEO expert, if you're a marketing expert, if you're a communication linguist expert, and that's a different world. But if you're trying to create leadership inside an organization, you're going to have to take a little more time. You're going to have to see and listen and invest more energy in today. If we're going to use this medium, you've got to invest that. You've got to get out of the concern for likes and get into, if you help 10 people, you would be doing a great service to helping leadership go forward. If you touch 10,000 people and don't do that for, I don't know, I don't even care how many, you just don't really get a chance to delve into them. It's awful hard to help people become leaders if you have not led people for a period of time. In other words, where you have had people underneath you for years working for you to understand all the nuances that can go on over that period of 5 years or so. Not a year, not 6 months, not 4 weeks, not 4 hours. Years. Because things happen that aren't in the books, folks. Things happen, and you're going to learn from those experiences. The experiences that I couldn't provide you, nor could any other expert in a podcast or in a book, or even 4 books I've written on this subject lately, including the workbook for the communication deal. But it's okay if you don't want to listen to me. That's fine. I get it. It's okay if you disagree with what I say. But what happens is, if you disagree and you don't write it out and you don't defend it, and it isn't based in evidence that I can understand and accept, if it's just a comment to be mean or disruptive, it's one reason why I ask questions. Somebody will say, I'm coaching, I'm a coach, and they'll put out there they're a coach, and they'll make this statement through a meme or something. And I ask a simple question, you know, how many people have you led for how long? And it's like I disrupted the world, and I'm just interested because I really want to know if you understand what that meme meant, if it meant anything, to really impacting leaders. And how would you know that? How would you know that? Now, if you come back and say, you know, I've led, you know, this team or this group of people for 3 years or 3.5 years, or you know, I've been a leader over the course of 22 years in different organizations doing different, then I'm all ears. You know, if you think what and then I'm going, okay, so what do you mean by the meme? How does that work? Some of that is trying to understand if what I'm thinking about it is right, and some of that is trying to understand whether you know what you're talking about. And if you do, then I'm great. I'm ready to have a great discussion with you. I'm ready to open my mind and listen to you. But if you don't have a basis for it, then you're not going to, I don't have a lot of time to spend with you to understand that. This is why it's important to listen to people, why it's important to listen to longer podcasts, why it's important to get involved. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day who's been in strategy design and leadership, has master's degrees, and they said, I've never been on the line. I've never led anybody. I've never executed the strategy. And they accepted I think they're accepting, as if I understand them correctly, accepting a line role that's going to enhance their knowledge and capability so much farther because of that experience. That's literally, in their case, people could see that as stepping back, but it's not. It's stepping forward in a big way. But unless you understand, unless you have a chance to talk with people who've done this, who've been through it, who's worked through it all their life, who've helped other people do it, who are now, again, helping other people learn the same thing, that's like I said, if I helped 100 people and there are thousands of me out there, that's how we build the best practices corporations throughout all organizations, not just the top 1%. Not just a few, but the many. That's how, if we could, 99% of small businesses in America, or 99% of the businesses in America are small businesses, people with less than 100 employees, many of them 1 to 20. The restaurant on Main Street. If we can help impact them, the same way we're spending billions of dollars on leadership development in major corporations, most of that billions of dollars is not going down to small businesses. It's isolated into the larger corporations. They have the most disruption because they have the most distance between them and their employees. But if we could get that concept, if we could get this thought process ingrained in smaller businesses, as they grow and as they scale, they again take this up with them, it will help them scale without failure. Doesn't cure all things, but it's certainly one of those elements that can help you be more successful. You just have to do it. So why do I encourage you watching longer podcasts, not just mine? Go in depth on subjects. This is what I like about YouTube. I don't see on other podcasts. I don't see on other social media channels. If social media is here to stay, we have to figure out how to make this work. And one way is to get out of this realm that likes make the difference. They don't. You don't know 10,000 people. 10,000 people may like what you see for 10,000 different reasons. You have no idea why they like it. If they're commenting and they're specific about why they like it, that's a step forward, and I encourage that, but it's still not enough. You still don't know them. You still haven't met them. You still don't know how that's going to impact their life down the road. You may make money off of it. You can't get rich. If that's your goal, then what I'm telling you, disregard everything. If your job is to help leaders, help them build better corporations and to be more effective within corporations, which is a great goal because there's so much benefit out of that. There's so much personal benefit. It's stuff you're not going to get awards for. You're not going to make a lot. You're not going to hit you may not hit the billionaire bracket unless something you do is just picked up and just goes viral. But that normally doesn't happen by pushing it. That happens because all of a sudden it works real well one place and it inoculates the rest of the world. That's sort of how we go into organizations with the recommended paradigm change. I'm not going to recommend that you go in and do the whole company at once. We'll start in one department or one area or a small business or two in a community, and all of a sudden the word will spread how much more effective they are. You know, they don't lose their people. They're getting creative and innovative ideas out of their people on a regular basis, etc. People will see this in the results of how they operate, which is where leadership development should be taking people. But right now, the data is showing only 24% of the people who get that kind of training actually apply it down in the work environment. And the impact on the organization employees is the same way. It's so this is what I think I wanted to say in a message. I'm not looking for likes. I know that's strange. Could I, if this takes off and I can make some money off of it, then I'm excited about that. I could use it, I'm in retirement. I mean, any retired person today would be crazy not to take money that can come to them. But that's not the purpose. Because I've lived this long without it. I can live longer without it. But it's so necessary, so needed today. This paradigm shift, if people come to understand it, and I can't do it alone, I can start a paradigm shift in a small business. If I were to have to go to a corporation, I'd have to, I don't want to hire people to do this. The idea for me is not to come do this for you in your organization. I will work with internally you, helping structure your organization with what you need to make the Renaissance Paradigm Odyssey success, to help it grow and become a significant success with your people. I'm not interested in bringing in a large number of consultants to do that. I want to work with whoever's in charge, for normally the CEO or whoever is going to expend the funds on this. But once I talk with them and they agree with it, then I want to work with somebody who I can help train and develop, who will grab this, take it, and roll with it, and just use me as a resource to execute it. And they will be the ones that push it. That's my process. I'm not a major consulting firm. I don't want to be a major consulting firm. I don't want to manage a bunch of consultants who come in and do something for you. Normally it doesn't work anyway very well that way. Normally, every time I've gone into companies behind other consultants, it's always, they blame the other consultants, and you talk to the consultants who did the project to see what went wrong. They end up saying it was a company wasn't committed, and you get the he said, she said thing, and that solves no problems at all. So I end up having to start over with to begin with. So there you go. Take some time and back up a little bit. If you're in leadership, this is for leaders and small business owners and corporations, if you want to listen. I don't know. If you're a consultant out there, I'm probably not your friend with this project, because, you're going to want to go in and do it for them. So I'm not even sure I'm talking to coaches or consultants. I'm talking to business people who own businesses, corporations, small business owners, who really want to change that whole environment where employees are not engaged, where they're dissatisfied with leadership, where they don't feel like they're needed or wanted or not heard or appreciated. If you want to turn that around, that's been going on for 40 years. In the last 2 decades, it's gotten worse. And AI is scaring the hell out of everybody anyway, so you got that to contend with on top of, your employees are wondering whether you're going to replace them tomorrow with some damn computer. If you got that kind of a problem, you might want to come chat with me for an hour or so. And once I do one, I'm locked in until I get that project started. I won't be able to start another one. Sometimes that's a year or two. If this is something you think you're interested in, and learning and growing with it, then you might want to talk to me about how you could learn what I've got to offer you to work in this realm. Then we can talk about how that can work. Because my idea is there's no way I can do this on my own. Some other people are going to have to get interested down the road. My general assumption is that's not going to happen until I get 1 or 2 projects under my belt and it works. And then after that, somebody's going to come along and say, how do you do this? And it's not a trainer. It's not where I can send you to a 4-week course and you get certified to do this. This is one of those deals where you have to take the project, come in and institute it yourself. You have to know enough about it and then institute it yourself. And then let me work with you along there. And then once you get one under your belt, you've probably got a pretty good grip on it. So that's how that will work. If somebody is threatened by this or feels uncomfortable as a consultant or consulting firm, you can buy me out. I'm open to that too. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not really. You can. That has happened. I'm not sure I'd want to do that though, because that then you really don't get out of it what you have spent 6 or 7 years putting your life into developing. You don't get anything out of it except money, and that hasn't been a driver in my life, I guess, forever. So I'm not a filthy rich person. I'm not even a rich person. I'm an average consultant, and I'm really excited about being that. You have a great day. I hope this proves helpful for you. If you are a consultant or you're trying to get in the business of helping leadership in companies, I hope it gives you another perspective to look at besides trying to become a YouTube influencer or a social media influencer, and encourages you to get engaged with the organizations that are close in with you or that you have contacts with, where you can actually get in there and help them get things done. I'm Vic Vogel. You can find all the description information. We'll offer all the ways to contact me and get in touch with me. If you have any questions or you just like to get on the air and dialogue about this, I'm open to doing that too. I love talking with people. I just enjoy it. And I learn a lot every time I do that. So you have a great rest of the day. I hope your May goes well. And I hope you enjoy. Whatever pursuit you go after, just go after it with the intent of helping people to get there. Don't get so hung up in how many people. You're probably not going to help thousands of people. You're probably going to help a few, but those few will make a big difference to other few, and that's how it tends to magnify. You have a great day.